Hello there, everybody. I haven't had a chance to do one of these in a while, and I thought I would do it. So, I wanted to tell you a story about my father. He's turning 77 years old this year, and a Vietnam veteran, one of those workaholics from that time. He woke up in the morning after sleeping maybe 3 hours and would go, go build a room on our house or go build a shop. Always doing something, always with his hands. This is a man that, he dropped out of high school to get a GED while serving in Vietnam because he didn't want to be drafted. So, higher education wasn't on there. But this is a man who taught himself carpentry, taught himself how to weld, taught himself how to be a diesel mechanic, taught himself basically everything hands-on that you can do, and raised two kids and did the best job imaginable doing these things. And it's amazing at what he achieves. He's still here, and that's what that's my father. Best man I've ever known in my entire life. It's a man who's proud. He's a man's man. It's hilarious. Never met a stranger in his life, and that's my father. And I'm saying this because we don't talk that often, but we're still close. Yeah, he's a great man. So one day, this is where the story really starts. Just to give you background, like when I grew up, I learned how to use a chainsaw at like 4 years old, and I was, nailing shingles on a roof at 3 and 5 years old. I mean, I grew up learning to build things from my father. He took a four-room house and turned it into basically tripled the size, added 2 external storage sheds, and we basically just, built everything. From the man, he turned our gravel driveway into concrete and, screened porches and remodeled rooms and built trailers. I mean, he did a lot. Then, he was a diesel mechanic for most of his career until diesel fuel hurts your heart. So he had open heart surgery and had to become a hostler, which moves trucks around, and, stayed employed and worked so many hours. I can't tell you how many hours this man worked. Just to retire, and his retirement became get a general contractor's license and build houses and sell them. And it's amazing. This is my father, where I am probably the laziest person who's ever come around, and I'm okay with that. He basically told me to basically be smart, or I'll end up working with my hands and be just as skinned up and beat up as he was. And I took that to heart, so I went to school and did as best I can, and working in finance now, and that's okay. But back to my father, who's worked his whole life. This is a man that, is 75 years old. He's climbing on his new house and new shed, and he's installing a light, that one of those yard lights 15 feet in the air. Got his foot tied around so he won't fall off, and laughing about it and having himself a good time. So all of this happens, and this is life. So the other day when I called, or my mom called rather, and we're talking and going through the whole, what's going on with the family and my brother doing his thing. She mentioned that my dad had to go have surgery, and it's happening tomorrow, as a matter of fact. And the surgery is a reverse shoulder replacement, and it's basically where instead of the ball of your shoulder being the arm part, they cut that off and they put the ball as the part near your chest. Your shoulder becomes the ball and your arm becomes the socket. And that allows them to use, I believe it's use deltoid muscles to move your arms. And I thought, this is beyond my comprehension, and it's an amazing medical technique, and it's basically the only way they can restore function to his arm. And so I called my dad to, talk to him and see how he's doing. And in my entire, I'm almost 47, but in all of my life, I've seen my dad like sad one time, maybe, depressed. Other than whenever dogs pass away, like he's, a pretty upbeat guy and he always just shakes things off. But there was a tiredness in his voice that I'd never heard in my entire life. And, I've never heard this sound coming from my father, who's always just, he's my dad. So this sound in his voice, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And he's like, of all the things, he went to put a hearing aid in, and his arm just fell in his lap. Basically, the muscles in the shoulder just tore loose and gave up the ghost and fell in his lap. And like I say, there's a tiredness in that voice, and I'm concerned. And we're watching and we're waiting for the surgery, and hopefully this will restore function to the arm. But it dawned on me at the time, I don't think I ever really looked at aging and mortality and how your body fails you. But I've never understood why elderly suicide is so high until I heard his voice. And all I can think of is if for heaven forbid, if something were to happen and the surgery doesn't work very well, or he can't use his arm anymore and he can't function, that's from the outside, and I don't know his inner workings, but from the outside, like, that's his life. And all I can think is, I'm really hoping the surgery gives him back just the ability at least to use his arm and to be functional again, because I can tell this would be what would just make his health decline. You can just tell. And I've read so many books and I've read so many stories of when people knew that something was wrong, and how there was an underlying relation, and how there's an underlying tone, and how they can just tell something's wrong, and I'm putting out that this is that moment. And of course I'm in touch with my mom, and we're going to keep an eye on it, and make sure he's okay, and make sure he's supported, and know that we care and know everything's going on. But I just want to tell you, if you ever hear that sound and there's something in the back of your mind that tells you that to pay attention, then you should definitely pay attention, because there's only one chance and there's only one time, and you have to pay attention, and you have to do what's right. You have to make sure that people are supported and cared, and it's just so much. And with the world the way it is, and as a man that literally, you go to Korea and you get shot at, and you come back. He didn't think he'd come back. He sold everything before he went to Vietnam. Signed up for the army, and didn't think he'd come back, and came back, and met my mom, had a family, the whole life of doing and doing and doing. And I mean, it's just an amazing. I don't even know where to go with this, other than I'm nervous about the surgery, and I'm hoping the recovery is going to be good, and everything about this is going to work out. Because if it doesn't, we'll have to start building on what his new purpose is, because I can't contemplate anything other than that. I can't think about anything happening that, I just can't think about anything else. So it's either going to restore function and we're going to be back to building, or it's not, and we're going to write a book or do something else mentally, because I just can't contemplate any other outcomes. with that being said, yeah, if you have family still around, reach out, talk to them, make sure they know they're there, because it is a tough world and everything in your life can change in an instant. I mean, it's so funny because we always joke. I have several injuries that were from stupidity and stupid things I've done. Um, I mean, I've been hit in the head with metal wedges. I stabbed myself in the leg with a knife I was making one time, and it stuck in the bone. It was hilarious. We were repairing a shop vac one time, and he plugged it in, and I saw the little blue spark from a brush motor, and if you know what I'm talking about, you know. But there's a little spark, and it dances around. I'm watching it, and what I'm not realizing is that the spindle of it is burning a hole in his hand, and he's trying not to let go because he knows he'll get shocked. And when I saw this, I'm like dying laughing, and he's sitting there like, ah, you know, never said a word. He as soon as we got it turned off and safe, he looked at his hand, and there was a smoking hole, not through it all the way, but I had burned the skin and blistered, and he's laughing about it, and I'm laughing about it. To give you an idea, I mean, this is a man that held a side grinder, if you've ever seen one of those, and he was holding a grinder, and he was trying to sharpen a little piece of metal, and it slipped, and it jammed right into the knuckle of his index finger, and I'm freaking out, and he's looking at it like, huh, I guess I gotta tape that up. And you're thinking medical tape probably, and I know it's not medical tape. It ends up being essentially some popsicle sticks and a little piece of a napkin and some electrical tape, and you wrapped it around his hand and, you know, around his finger, and he kept on working because that's what you did. And it cracks me up. And we're both sitting there talking about injuries that, you know, I've fallen. I fell 20 feet one time on a concrete driveway, and banged my head, and got up and walked around, completely clueless that this was happening. And I came conscious like maybe 10 hours later. My mom sitting there because she couldn't get me to the hospital, but I'm holding ice on my head when I wake up finally, and she's freaking out, but, you know, we're okay. And it's funny because for what he's done in his life, and how many times he's been shocked, and how many times he's had things blow up, and, you know, close calls and mechanic accidents and all of this, to get one of the most major injuries from putting a hearing aid in is just unheard of. And the weird part about it is that literally 5 months ago, I slept wrong on my shoulder, and for almost 6 months, I couldn't pick my arm up above waist height. I couldn't, or not waist height, I'm sorry, I couldn't pick my arm up above parallel, so I couldn't hold it straight out without hearing a grinding, clicking sound and feeling like the shoulder was going to pop out of the socket. And that was just from sleeping late. So here we both are, you know, I'm middle-aged and he's getting up there in years, and the simplest little freaking just living causes obscene damage to me. So yeah, that's where it is. But I wanted to get that out somewhere, and I still have this channel which I enjoy making videos for every now and then, so I thought I would tell you that I have the best father that ever existed, who's going into surgery tomorrow, and if you have good thoughts, please give them, because man, I can't contemplate what happens if it doesn't. Yeah, I want to think about that. So on to the next chapter. Y'all have